Welcome to the CE Pro Podcast. I'm Executive Editor Arlen Schweiger. Over the past several years, there have been a lot of momentum around the lighting fixture category for integrators, but Boston-based System 7, led by founder and president Jerry Lynch, embraced the lighting fixture category more than 5 years ago. He even went so far as to merge and then purchase a lighting retailer. That decision has been transformative for System 7, so much so that the company has now grown to a whopping 54 employees. Lynch sat down with CE Pro's Jason Knott to discuss his blueprint for lighting success and gave CE Pro an in-depth tour of his lighting experience center in downtown Boston on this week's podcast episode.
As always, be sure to subscribe to CE Pro's YouTube channel and hit that like button on our videos, or subscribe to the CE Pro podcast on Apple and Spotify and leave a review.
You know, people loosely put the label trailblazer, visionary, innovator on various individuals out there, but Jerry Lynch of System 7 truly is one of those people, one of those individuals. He was so far ahead of his time that I think people accused him of being nuts for some of what he was doing with System 7. But his latest innovation is a new showroom in the Boston Design Center that showcases lighting and shading for all of his customer base, ranging from builders to architects to designers to homeowners, and with a very effective scripted demonstration. But here to talk to me about this visionary mode and what he's done with his company and his new showroom is Jerry Lynch of System 7. So Jerry, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you, Jason, for the extremely kind, generous introduction.
Well, I say that truly mean that. So let's kind of back up. Tell us kind of the history of System 7.
Sure. So I started System 7 in 2003. I had been in the software industry before that. So my vision for System 7 when I started it was to be open standards-based technology solutions provider. And that really, at the time, if we all remember back then, the market was dominated with proprietary products. And you know, we just had this vision that, hey, it could be simpler. What can we do to make it simpler? And so we started the company with that vision. We were early adopters of products like Sonos and Home Logic at the time, products that I think were you know, leading the charge on being network-based products that were simple to use and simple to configure and didn't require proprietary programming. Too much proprietary programming. So that's how we started the company. We quickly gravitated to lighting controls. Really took a love to Lutron and their shading and lighting products. We quickly became a platinum dealer in our first year that we signed up with them. It just was a natural fit for our company. We also hired a couple of ladies at the time who were both fresh out of architecture school, and we really got focused on design. So what led me to lighting was design and lighting controls. And we were just being met with a challenge on each project. This is back 2013 timeframe. We bought the Boston Shade Company at that time, and that was a leader in motorized shades. And that really brought us way into the shading business. And we had two designers join the firm who were both ladies who had their masters in architecture. So you take all that combination, and we were big into lighting controls. The biggest problem we had was compatibility and performance, and someone else was selecting fixtures, but every time they did, it became our problem. And a lot of times it became our problem after the fact. And so I wanted to get upstream from that. And I remember, I think it was 2014, going to Light Fair, just on a whim saying, I'm going to go find out what the lighting fixture business is about. Hopped on a plane 2 days later, took a 3-day immersive course in lighting design, wandered the show floor, you know, had people say to me, what am I doing? I saw one person from our industry who was a rep, and I felt like, what are you doing here? And that's where it really started. And, you know, I remember calling, you know, my head of design saying, hey, I'm going to find out about the lighting fixture business. Now, what made me do that? It was really this compatibility problem.
So now talk about your partnership and then eventual acquisition of Wolfers Lighting.
Yeah, so that, again, that was the 2014 timeframe. I went to Light Fair. We started working with Wolfers Lighting, who was the leading lighting supplier to the high-end residential market in Boston. arm's length partnership, like, hey, refer us friends who need customers who need controls. We'll use you for fixtures. Got to know their staff. One thing led to another, and in 2016 we started talking about merging, and really it had to do with the owners there not having a clear exit strategy. They were big believers in technology, and we were very interested in lighting fixtures, and we said this combination could be really interesting. So January 1st, 2017, we merged the companies. It was actually an acquisition, if you will, because it was a merger to buy out the partners who I have since bought out. And that just threw us right into the mix. Now we were, the largest lighting supplier in Boston. And I had people call me that day and say, "You're a genius." I had people call me that day and say, "What the heck are you doing?" I had the same feelings. What am I doing? Am I on the right track? And it's been an interesting journey since then. And I'll say the number one thing, that's 5.5 years ago. Those who are getting into lighting in our industry, it's not a 5-month journey. It's a long process and evolution. And there's so much to learn there. There's as much to learn about lighting as there would be about the technology space that we're all in today. And I feel like 5.5 years in, I still learn something new every day. It's been an adventure, but it really thrust us right to the forefront of the lighting industry in kind of a unique way.
All right, let's talk about your latest move, which is this new showroom that you've opened at the Boston Design Center. Just really quickly, tell everybody what the Boston Design Center is.
Sure. The Boston Design Center is a super large building built in 1910 on the seaport, in the seaport of Boston. And it is, you wander the halls there and there's showroom after showroom of fabrics. And it's a place where interior designers and folks from the building community go. There's tile shops, there's furniture places. There's so many different showrooms that are all very focused on high-end residential market. And so for us, when we bought the Boston Shade Company, they had a showroom there in 2013. I didn't really understand the building, but once we were in there, we loved it. So we moved. Our latest venture is to be on the first floor. We're right next to Waterworks. It's not really a retail location because it's lightly trafficked, but the traffic that's there is good. It's all people, homeowners traveling with their architects or their designers looking for finishes for their homes or ideas and inspiration. So being on the first floor is a super convenient location. And it's just great neighbors to have. There's reps that we work with for lighting and shading products who are in the building. And it's a good location, heart of downtown, really a heart of the design district. There's a lot of design activity around us.
So you mentioned some people are there touring with their architects and their designers. How do you use it? Is it client meetings primarily, or is it a lot of walk-in, or is it a combination?
It is primarily by appointment. But occasional walk-in is the way I would describe it. So we have a friendly, greeter who's there should someone walk in during an appointment, and we try to steer people who walk in to set an appointment. So it's really, it's meeting with our expert design team on an appointment by appointment basis. We're not afraid to lock the doors and shut it down for a highly complex project that we need to shut it down for 2 hours. And other times it's just open and people wander in, employees come and go. It's really, it's not retail. It's when we don't even call it a showroom, we call it an experience center. There is no point of sale. There's no retail transactions. It's an educational center. And when we designed it, one of our guiding principles was that we wanted it to be a place that if someone visited, whether they worked with us or not, they could learn something that would make their project better. That was kind of our principle when we started out and laid out the design for the space.
So I was fortunate enough to spend some time there with you recently and get a tour of the showroom. Let's take it piece by piece. When that customer first comes in at the front of the showroom, and talk about that area and what takes place there.
Sure. So it's a long, narrow space, about 100 feet long, about 20 some odd feet wide. And so we wanted to break it up into sections where we could really study a product category in greater depth. So if you remember when you visited, what we do is we start by greeting the folks and taking them to this long table in the middle. take off your coats, put down your stuff. Let's talk for 5 minutes about your project, get a beverage. And then where do we take them? We can take them and start the tour at any of the 4 locations. Or if we can't really figure out which is the best place, we just start front to back. And those 4 locations are really the shading venue. We have a living room, which is an immersive architectural lighting and human-centric lighting demo. We have an architectural lighting lab, which is very specific and a tier down from full color tuning, but still talking about architectural lighting. And we have a decorative lighting gallery, which serves also as a backdrop for our design location. So we have a long table and it's fully enabled for remote meetings. So we've had meetings there where the homeowners with us in Boston, the designers in New York, the architects in Los Angeles, and we're all collaborating on a set of plans at that table, surrounded by some beautiful decorative lighting. So those are really the 4 sections. And we have a little part in the back where we can show the head end and the mechanical spaces for those who are interested in that as well.
Right. So in the shading area, it was very unique because you have, full glass front, and then you have kind of emulated sunlight on the sides. Talk a little bit about those areas.
So we've got 2 artificial windows, if you will, large LED panels that are color tuning capable, tunable white. And they serve as artificial windows. In fact, sometimes people have thought they are windows, but it was just a way for us to show more shades without having more windows. But it's a really beautiful space. And as you may recall, we show all the traditional, sheer and room darkening materials. We show decorative fabrics. We show Roman shades. We show palladium shades. We show a bunch of different options. And it's really a lightly, it's a space that isn't overwhelming to look at, but we can show you 50 or 60 different shades in a small footprint. And it's really educational. We're showing you the difference between blackout materials with and without side channels. We're showing you, reverse roll versus standard roll materials, jam mount versus traditional mount, pocketed situations, different fabrics that at first you think the fabric is about the texture or the pattern, and then you really realize it's about the texture when you see it backlit. And so it's a place where we can show all the different concepts to people. It's super educational experience.
All right, now you move into that immersive area. Talk about that.
Yeah, so what we did is we created a room within a room, and we actually closed the room off with shades and immerse. It gives us an environment to study architectural lighting in an immersive setting. So we walk people through, and really we assume when we meet someone there, they have no background in lighting. And I've been part of these meetings where in the good old days, you'd take 2 samples, 2,700 and 3,000, you'd go to a freezing cold job site, shine them on a brick wall and say, which one do you want? And we said, we have to really improve on that. So we have a room that's got, about 20 architectural lights. We can show wall wash, down lights, beam spread, color temperature, lumen output, delivered lumens. We can talk about different color temperatures, different colors. We can talk about, the quality of a LED driver and the light, the materials you see with that light. And we get into the full human-centric lighting in the same lab. And it's people are sitting on couches, they're relaxed, it feels like you're in home. It's been an amazing experience to be able to show that to folks. It's the right way for them to experience architectural lighting.
And as part of the demo, you have a bowl of oranges, and then you change the color temperature on that and kind of really show, and some artwork on the walls, and show how changing that changes, just changing the color of the light changes the look of these pieces of art or whatever you might have in the home.
Yeah, so we can do something as simple as show you artwork in 2,700 or 3,000 Kelvin, but we can also show it to you using a vibrancy feature from Ketra, for instance, and that's what we do with those oranges. So it's the same color white light, but we're saturating part of the spectrum and showing you how it takes an orange that's pale and makes it look like a red-orange color, and how it can impact cool colored artwork or warm colored artwork as well. So that's been a feature people enjoy, and it really it's illustrative of what you can do with light now that you couldn't do 2 years ago, 4 years ago, in the same way.
One of the other elements is kind of a hidden element, I'll say, in the demo is you're doing all of this manipulation with one button control on either an iPad or a mobile device. And it's really showcasing control, but you're not really talking about control.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's pretty deliberate. We scripted it that we're going back and forth between keypads and iPad, and we do not call attention to it right away. Because what we found is people start to realize that it's just a simple part of every system, that it's not like, do you want controls or not? It's controls and fixtures go together. And by getting halfway through a demo before we talk about controls, and by using the controls, seamlessly in our presentation, we find that people get very comfortable with it very quickly. And 15 years ago, we had a wall of keypads, and the whole pitch was selling them on pick your keypad and how keypads work and lighting control. I think customers are beyond that level of sophistication today, and it's more about showing them how you can do it, easily, and then eventually give them the iPad, let them do some of it, and it's a better sales process than sort of the wall of keypads and let me pitch you on why you need controls. It's part of the system. The things you can do with LED fixtures require controls. It's just like saying, hey, if you want to dim, you need a dimmer, right? If you have a switch, you need to add a dimmer to dim. If you want to do all these great things you can do with lighting now, you need controls.
And one last thing on that immersive area, as part of the demo, you're showing the full cycle of a day, from the color changing light with a single button, showing that circadian rhythm, human-centric lighting, introducing that into the conversation.
Yeah, and I'm sure you saw this when we took you through the space, that there's a lot of experiential elements to the show, to our show. I call it the showroom, and told you I don't call it a showroom, but to the experience there, where we show something to someone to figure out what their reaction is, right? And that's a really interesting one, that it brings up a lot of issues, like what is the use case for that technology, and what are the limitations of color tuning today, and integrate and having your decorative lighting match that, your architectural lighting. So the whole idea is just, people don't understand it. They will not have seen it. And so we have to show them everything you can do. And at each point, sometimes people will interrupt us and say, wait a minute, what is that? Explain that to me. And so that's the experiential nature of it, is we show them everything. And when they breeze over it, we keep moving. It's not a sales pitch. It's an experiential learning process, but they stop us at that point a lot of times and want to understand more what that means. They ask us about blue light. They ask us about, wellness. They ask us a lot of questions at that time. And that's a pretty powerful feature. We also, explain to people, this isn't something you do every day and you just change how you use your lights. You have to understand the use case of it. It's not like you just suddenly want it to always be, 1600 Kelvin at such and such a time of day. But the fact that you can match what's happening in natural light and bring it into your living environment, that's really the point there.
Largest portion of the showroom is this decorative lighting gallery. Tell us a little bit about that. You've got, it seemed like about a couple dozen fixtures or so on display. Why were those selected, and what are you showcasing there?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of folks in the integration world are turning their back to decorative lighting, and I understand why. It's this never-ending field of options, right? It's really there's so many different options available, and artists and different looks and finishes and sizes, that it gets overwhelming. And so when I first bought Wolfers, they had a large showroom, and you could never have a large enough showroom. There's always more you can't show, and so we embraced that and decided we want to show a small collection of unique artists, rotate the collection more often, illustrate different materials and scale and options by showing one example versus one of each SKU from one manufacturer. And that's what we did there. And for us, decorative lighting is definitely a different part of the sales process, right? You don't have to decide that when you decide your architectural lighting. But you do still have to consider it when you're using color tuning, like so that it's complementary. You don't want those decisions to be totally different from each other. And for us, we already had a large part of our business that was interacting with interior designers on decorative lighting and on shading, people who don't buy AV. They're just buying lighting and shading. And so, I think we're more of an actual lighting and shading company than integrator at this point. In fact, if you look at the percentage of our revenue from AV, it's lower than any integrator I'm aware of. We're not AV driven, we're lighting and shading driven at this point. And so that decorative lighting is, it's not part of every sales process, but we have interior designers looking at specific decorative lighting, and next thing you know, we're into a project and it's got shades and it's got controls. So I wouldn't ignore that category entirely. I just think it needs a slightly different approach than architectural lighting.
So one of the unique elements I thought was you also had it broken down by modern contemporary designs versus traditional designs. Talk a little bit about how you broke those two out.
Yeah. So first of all, when I first bought Wolfers, I started visiting showrooms, lighting showrooms around the country. And, I was the silly new guy who didn't know any better and asked them, why can't I dim things or see things one at a time? So every fixture in there is individually controllable and dimmable. That's kind of unique unto itself. And then the second thing is the traditional categories for decorative lighting are traditional, transitional, and modern. And I had a real tough time understanding exactly what was and what wasn't transitional when I first got into that side of the business. And so we just decided to take a whole new look at it. And we call our fixtures there natural, modern, and industrial. And it's really more about the categories that we think those are distinct and ones that we can define a little bit. And so we just started picking manufacturers based on either the materials or the shapes to fit one of those descriptions. And we find that we use shades to sort of show a collection by itself. And so the whole artistry there is, as opposed to traditional lighting showrooms that you walk into and it's just ablaze with light and there's 1,000 fixtures and it either feels like a flea market or just, an overlit room. We were trying to isolate and show less of a collection so you can really understand it and see it on its own.
Okay, the final area in the rear of the Experience Center is the lighting lab, where you're showcasing some linear options and some other specific applications like toe kick lighting and cabinet lighting. Talk about that.
Yeah. So again, we're not just getting into lighting; we're into it in a big way, and we were, since 2017. So we can't just show one fixture and sell that and just show architectural. So we have to show all the options. And so that's sort of our back of house room, if you will. It is a place where we can study linear and we show them all the options. We made a magnetic linear display where we can show different wattages and different quality of fixtures, different light outputs. Again, all individually controllable. We can show in cabinets with vertical lighting on wood shelves or down lighting on glass shelves. So it's really, again, the whole idea is to show all the options so people can understand what decisions they're making. And it educates them when we sit down and do a lighting design for them or do a controls and lighting design. How does it all work together? But that room is also, if you remember, that's a place where we can show more granularly, we can study dim levels and beam spreads and some of those concepts in wall wash versus downlight, things that people just don't understand. And I wanted to simplify it and not have it be only available to those who can afford a lighting designer on the highest end, but more, let's show these concepts to everyone and tell us which ones you like, and get you involved in the design process to the best of our ability. So that room is sort of a deeper study of some of those concepts.
Yeah, and I thought one of the most powerful parts of that demo was in the ceiling. You have some small aperture lighting, and you showcase a more expensive fixture versus a less expensive fixture, and it's amazing to see the difference so visually. Where it's I think most people wonder, gee, why should I pay more for a fixture? What's really the difference? And then when you showcase it, it's incredible.
Yeah, and it was also, I appreciate that. It's a really good place to show, and that issue you're talking about is glare, for instance, right? That's you have this whole side of the lighting about having a quiet ceiling and watching out for glare. So that the riddle there was, we show people looking at the ground, different lumen outputs, and which one do you think looks brighter when you look at the ceiling? And everyone picks the glary fixture. That's got to be the brightest because it looks the brightest, but it's actually a lower lumen output than the other one, which is a better engineered fixture, has a deeper engine. It's a whole construction of it makes it give us more light output without the glare on the ceiling. And that's usually eye-opening for folks. That really gives perspective. A lot of times what we're doing is our clients are coming in with a spec that came from somewhere, and we're showing them how it could be improved. They may have a fixture that only dims to 5%. Well, we'll show them what 1 and 0.1% looks like. They may have a fixture that's going to be very glary, but it seems to be less expensive. So we can show them, hey, look, we don't care which decision you make, but don't think you just got the fixture that's cheaper. Understand the trade-offs. Why is one more expensive than the other? And our clients are very happy to understand that better. And that's the whole point is that they learn those differences in that room.
And then adjacent to that room, as you mentioned earlier, is a small mechanical room that is probably really enlightening to builders and architects because of the small size of it. Whereas you're not seeing these racks of lines of panels that you might have seen years ago.
Exactly. And if you remember in the earlier room, we have our AV rack, if you will. And it's always a conversation getter because it's about 3 feet tall and it's running the Wi-Fi and the cameras and the audio and the video and the automation. And it's much smaller. We take a lot of pride in being able to, have as small a footprint as we can in the mechanical space. And in the back room, we've got 8 panels of lighting in a tidy little room with next plexiglass covers, of course, so we can see it. But the whole idea there is, our battle lines in downtown construction in most major cities, we don't get large mechanical spaces to work with. We're an afterthought. So you really have to show them how you can, design and engineer that into a small space. So, and not everyone wants to go back there and see all the back end, but when someone does, it can be really educational to understand how it all comes together. We've had electricians in there. We bring them to our space and we walk them through how it all works. And that's part of cementing our partnership with them as well. So we sometimes spend more time in the back room than the front.
And you mentioned that you have the long table. It's in the decorative gallery, and you can bring customers there using some proprietary software that you have that showcases how you can do the layout of the lighting design. Is that really more suited for that architect and builder than it is for the homeowner to see the plans, or do they like seeing that too?
No, it's definitely for both. So it's our own rapid schematic design tool that we've developed, and it allows us to quickly go through scope and budget. And so that's just a key part of our overall business operation that is, I think, fairly unique, is that we can build a $500,000 project, if you will, from a set of PDFs in 20 minutes, and we can do it live with the team, or we do it before they get there, and then we can change it live so that you say, well, you want to spend less, let's start to change the quality of the lights and quality of the speakers, or the number of shades, or the number of audio zones. And so it's an interactive tool, again, not a salesy thing of like, here's a presentation for something we talked about 2 weeks ago and you don't even remember what we asked for. It's a live collaborative design process, and that is absolutely key to how our company operates.
Okay, so let's talk about the results. Years ago, remember the old retailer Crazy Eddie. So people were probably saying Crazy Jerry when you leaped into lighting and shades so full-fledged. But the results, the proof is in the pudding. Tell us what the results have been for the company.
It's been 100% transformative. We are, like I said, we're more lighting and shading than we are AV company at this point in our lives. And we're more involved with better projects earlier in the process with more stakeholders interacting with us 100% of the time. We are with the architect and the homeowner. We're not with the trades guys. Where I started in this industry, writing on studs where we're going to put an outlet, 20 years ago, we're not even close to that anymore. It's really, we're a key part of the design team. And, the experience center we built, I had a lot of questions about it. Should I do it? Should I not do it? Of course, I tried to open it at the beginning of COVID. I had plenty of reasons to doubt it, but when we finally opened, we had a few people in one at a time, and each one had a large proposal and wanted to value engineer their process. And each one left happier and spending more money. Period. I mean, I'm not making that up. And it wasn't even like we tried to do that. It just happened. And it taught me that, a showroom or an experience center, whatever you want to call it, it has to be a place for customers to make decisions and to get educated on options. And the less salesy we are, the more we seem to sell. The more we are designing and showing options, the happier the clients are to add to their design. It changes the dynamic. You know what I mean? They come in saying, hey, I've got to cut 50 grand out of this proposal, and they leave spending 100,000 more, and they're happy. They come in saying, I've got 20 minutes to be here, and 2.5 hours later, they leave. It's a relationship builder. It's great for business.
Well, Jerry, congratulations on the success of the Experience Center. It truly is transformative. It has been for your business, and I hope the integrators who are watching this can see themselves as visionaries down the road. So, Jerry, thanks for spending time with CE Pro today.
Thank you, Jason. Great to talk to you.